Well, let's kick off our bulletin right here. The situation remains volatile in Malvern, Johannesburg, as sporadic protests and the looting of stores continue. Several roads leading in and out of the area have been completely blocked off to traffic. Motorists as well as the public are advised to avoid the area as protesters are stoning and torching vehicles. Police are out in their numbers and are trying to contain the situation. Now, it's believed that the protesters are pro-Zuma supporters calling for his release. For more, we are joined on the SABC line by SABC reporter Sashin Naidoo, who has been monitoring events on the ground. Sashin, thanks for joining us at this hour. Talk to me about what's happening on the ground right now in Johannesburg and where you are.
Well, currently, as we speak, the situation is quite tense in and around Johannesburg, especially areas including Malvern, Town, and areas just around that. Because as we speak now, there are sporadic incidents of protests that are happening. Looting of shops are still continuing, as well as the torching of quite a lot of stores in these areas. We also do know that in Alexandra, as well as the Wynberg areas, there is quite a lot of protest action that is happening as we speak.
Sashin, do you get a sense that law enforcement authorities that are on the ground have the situation under control?
Well, law enforcement officers are currently on the ground in their numbers. I have seen quite a lot of both members from the SAPS as well as the Johannesburg Metro Police Department being deployed in the various areas where these protests are happening. However, it does seem that these protests and lootings are still actually going on, without police intervening in a way that we would expect. However, we do know that police have made quite a number of arrests since last night. So hopefully throughout the day, they would be able to quell the situation that is currently happening.
Now, Sashin, did you manage at all to get a sense from the protesters themselves why it is that they've taken to the streets, they're damaging property, and in some instances robbing, individuals and people? Even our own SABC crew was robbed a short while ago.
Well, due to the volatile situation that is actually happening, the police officers aren't really allowing us to get up close and personal with the protesters, because of how violent they are actually being. However, we did manage to speak to a few shop owners earlier today who were victims of these criminals. And basically they said, one shop owner in particular that I spoke to said that herself and her husband went to open up their store this morning. It's a grocery store on Jewel Street in Malvern. And an entire gang of extremely violent people entered their store and robbed them in broad daylight. They said they tried calling the police, they tried looking for assistance, but there was no one around. So at this moment, things are quite volatile, it is quite violent, and the police officers that we have been speaking to on the ground that is actually monitoring the situations at these hotspots say that, it isn't really accessible for people to go to now, and people should stay away from these areas. And those particular areas are Malvern, Town, Alexandra and Wynberg, also Hillbrow as well.
Do we have any indication, how many people were arrested, Sashin, today? Because we do understand in KZN, for instance, over 30 people were arrested overnight.
Yes, well, basically the latest update that we have from national SAPS is that national spokesperson Brenda Moridili just released a statement saying that there were more than 60 people arrested in both Gauteng as well as KwaZulu-Natal for their for them being part of these protests and their violent actions.
Are you seeing anyone adhering to, the rules, the COVID-19 rules? I saw a couple of people still walking around that area without any masks and no indication of social distancing. I mean, is there anyone that's actually adhering to these rules?
Well, from what we have been seeing since the early hours of this morning is that it doesn't seem that COVID-19 protocols are being followed at all. It's a blatant violation of COVID-19 protocols. People aren't wearing their masks. They are, going out in their numbers and also breaking the law. Stores, setting fire to stores. There were also quite a number of vehicles that were torched during these violent protests.
Well, Sashin, that's where we have to leave it for this afternoon. We'll definitely be catching up with you a little later on.